Well, we'll go ahead and get started here. We're going to keep this pretty casual, very entrepreneurial style. I didn't even prepare any questions for you. Welcome to, this is the kind of Big Ideas panel, kind of sharing our entrepreneurial journey. We have three wonderful entrepreneurs here to share their stories with you today. And this is our first year doing this Entrepreneurship and Innovation Day, so this is all kind of new, but I'm just going to kind of go around and have you all just tell us your entrepreneurial story, your journey, and probably each maybe take about 15 or so minutes. Tell me, and the audience, your journey after, high school, where you went to college, when you started kind of thinking that you wanted to, do something, creative, in your life, and kind of walk us through and, give us some advice for those of us who want to kind of start our own business or our own nonprofit, our own project type of thing. So we'll start with you, Dipinder, and just introduce yourself and share your story, please.
Okay. Actually, I have a mic.
Yep.
So I'll actually start with an audience show of hands. How many of you have ever felt too hot or too cold in your rooms? Right. So my journey really starts with your raised hands. So when I graduated, I just wanted to be an engineer. I had absolutely no idea or inkling that I was going to be an entrepreneur. We moved to Mankato about 8 years ago, and I had a newborn daughter. She was 2 months old. And when she turned 1, we put her in her own room. And when we did that, she would wake up in the middle of the night crying. And what I found was that basically the temperature in her room would drop about 10 degrees. She would get uncomfortable and she would start crying. So as an engineer, I had to find a fix for the problem, right? So fix those damn temperatures. And once, if you're a really good engineer, then you really want to fix the problem so well that you form a company to do it. And that's what we really started. So we actually formed a company called Santulit, and the whole idea was that we would have what's called zone control, so that each room in the house would have its own individual temperature control system. Right? So we would regulate the air which is coming into the room using motorized battery-operated dampers. And at we were pretty successful. We won what's called a GE Eco-Imagination Award out of 5,000 entries worldwide. And at one point, we were talking with GE and Best Buy to commercialize and distribute the product. And then 2008 occurred, and the residential market just plummeted. So the next step in an entrepreneurial journey is what's called the pivot, right? So now we have a fancy name for failure. It's called pivot. So we pivoted, and we decided that basically the commercial marketplace, or what's called the light commercial marketplace, that's buildings under 25,000 square feet, have a similar problem. Most of them have a single thermostat. There are wide temperature imbalances. People are normally uncomfortable. So what we decided to do was make an HVAC, or heating and ventilation control system, that would allow everyone in their office to have their own individual temperature control. So we made a system that's wireless, it's easy to install, and we made the system, we launched it in April of last year. Now the problem is, as an entrepreneur, it's easy enough to make a product. It's very hard for people to get people to buy it. So the next step is, especially in the market that we were in, we were talking to all these businesses who are very risk averse, right? And as an unknown company, it's very hard for them to buy into your idea and think that it's so great. Their main concern is, are we as an entrepreneur or company going to be around for the next few years while they get a return on their investment? So one of the things we wanted to do was, we were suffering from, a lack of reputation. So what we decided to do was bolster it, and we entered the Minnesota Cup. And that was probably, I think, the smartest move that we made. And it's been absolutely fantastic. We ended up winning the Minnesota Cup. It's been the first time that a company outside the Twin Cities won it. And I think that alone highlighted it and got us a little bit more of notoriety. But the Minnesota Cup was much bigger than what we thought it would be. I mean, we had entered it mostly for just going through the process and getting into the limelight. But it is become a journey of its own, right? So in terms of the publicity that we have gotten, the media attention that we have gotten, and also in terms of, we didn't recognize it at that point, but overall, I mean, the weight that the Minnesota Cup brings, the mentors that and the alliances that you form as part of the process of entering that cup, I mean, those have been hugely beneficial. In fact, one of the companies which has sponsored the Minnesota Cup, Magnet 360, they were going to be one of the first people to put in our system in their entire building, right? And it's going to be the largest deployment that we have. So there's a lot of these things, opportunities, which became a virtuous cycle, mostly because of what the Minnesota Cup became. I mean, there's a lot of money involved with the Minnesota Cup that doesn't hurt. I mean, we won $30,000 as a division winner and $50,000 as an overall winner, and that was no strings attached. But more importantly, it's these additional intangible things that all came together because of what the Minnesota Cup became. And we then ended up getting paired with Steve Case. Again, thanks to the Minnesota Cup, we got an entry to pitch to Steve Case when he came to Minnesota as part of the Rise of the Rest. We won that, and that's been another journey of itself. We went and presented at South by Southwest. We went and presented at Google Demo Day, one of 12 companies to do so. And now we're probably going to go to the White House, again, thanks to the journey that began probably a year ago at this time.
Incredible. Thank you, Deepan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't want to follow that. Annie, you can go.
I just wanted to make a comment that, we talk about, being entrepreneurial, and I want to just echo what Deepinder said. He was an engineer,
Right.
by trade, but entrepreneurs seek to solve a problem, and that's, kind of what you said. He saw a problem, and he wanted to find a solution to it, and that's a lot of what entrepreneurs do and what they're good at. Is seeing that problem out there and then wanting to work towards finding a solution to it. So,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So my name is Matt Ames. I own Minnesota Pro Paintball, Challenge for Children's, Knocker Squad, and Escape Inc., which the paintball company is just we have a retail store in Burnsville. We have a 150-acre paintball park in Lakeville, and that's the paintball company. Challenge for Children's is a 501c3 nonprofit that essentially raises money for children's hospitals and clinics, currently of Minnesota, soon to be expanding that as we continue to grow. Escape Inc. You guys heard of those escape rooms? Raise your hands if you've heard of escape rooms. All right. We've got some new customers in the room. If you don't know what an escape room is, so it is clocks, locks, and secret passages. You and a team of 4 to 10 people get locked in a fully themed room, and you have 60 minutes to figure out how the hell to get out. It's super fun. The rooms are totally themed. We've been doing this for just over a year now. We've got 2 locations. We got one in Minneapolis. We just opened in Milwaukee, and I head to St. Louis in 10 days to go open up down there. That's kind of Escape. And then there's Knocker Squad. Who knows what bubble soccer is? All right, even more. Perfect. So we do bubble soccer up in Minneapolis. We were the first people to kind of bring that to the Twin Cities. Nothing too wild and crazy, but I do immersed entertainment experiences. The problem that I am solving is I think entertainment sucks. How many of you guys have had a event that was supposed to be awesome, like a birthday party or a bachelor party or whatever, that just wasn't really that memorable or that awesome? Anybody? Come on. You know that one that your buddy talks about? I'm really trying to solve that problem. I think there's a problem with the entertainment options, and as well as there's an accessibility problem. I think there's a lot of really, really cool things out there that will never get the opportunity to actually experience if you're not in the right place at the right time, or, like Red Bull crashed ice. Gentlemen, we're all aware of that. I don't know if you guys skate at all, but wouldn't it be really cool to get to do that? But you really can't unless you qualify and do all that stuff. So we kind of seek to bring those opportunities to the masses and creating new ones. My entrepreneurial journey started from a very, very young age. I was organizing bike races in the neighborhood when I was 12 and all that kind of stuff. So I went to college here, 3 years in Mankato, and then I transferred to St. Thomas and graduated there from their entrepreneurship program. While here in Mankato, I started my paintball company when I was in high school, my senior year of high school. I've had that going for 14 years now. Just kind of keep plugging away. And while in Mankato, I started one of my 3 online stores that have all failed. Online's tough if you don't have a bunch of capital. So yeah, that's kind of, my journey's really been more about just starting things. Like I've failed. I have so many failures. We could sit here and talk about them all day. Pivots. No, there's definitely just been some flat out, this is a bad idea. What were you thinking? But that's okay because I learned from them. And those they always evolve. Like all those failures, they do evolve. You can call it a pivot, but it evolves into something else. And I don't know. That's me.
That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is mine on? Is it on? Okay. Hi, I'm Angie Bastian, and I am a co-founder of Angie's Boom Chicka Pop, formerly known as Angie's Kettle Corn. And thanks for having me. I love to be a part of things like this that celebrate and also normalize the entrepreneurial journey. And one of the things that I think is important is in the years of being an entrepreneur, I think I've seen sort of 2 pathways. People who set out to be entrepreneurs looking for a problem to solve, and accidental entrepreneurs that have a problem they need to solve and then it turns into a business. And I am on that sort of place. The problem that my husband and I wanted to solve was that we had 2 young children that we needed to get a college fund started. And I was a nurse, and he was a school teacher, a history teacher, and we were doing okay, but we said, how are we going to start a college fund? And the obvious answer for us was to start a business. And we bought a kettle online, and 14 years ago started popping kettle corn at farmers markets and in front of grocery stores and here at MSU and wherever anyone would let us pop. And then we were popping at the Vikings training camp, and at the training camp we just kind of thought it would be fun if the players ate our product. And since Dan is this huge Vikings fan, we just thought, it was a cool thing to do. And so we called and said, hey, will the Vikings take our product? And they were engaged towers and Sunday night film watching, and they said, well, sure, they'll take it as long as it's free. And we were like, oh yeah, we'll give it to you free. And we popped 120 bags, sent it off to Gage Towers, and the next morning, we had Vikings players and coaches, kind of sales and marketing team kind of coming around our tent saying, oh, what is this stuff? We love it, never had anything like this before. Thank you. And then the sales and marketing team from the Vikings asked us if we wanted to be a sponsor or the official kettle corn of the Minnesota Vikings, which then gave us legitimacy. We got connected. We connected our little wagon to a legitimate business organization, and we learned a lot from the Vikings and from the NFL on how to market and how to expand your business. So that's how we started. That was in 2002 when we connected with the Vikings. Because of that relationship, we had the opportunity to build a market. And in the Twin Cities area, we sold our kettle corn in the front of the Metrodome every home game. And we had people asking where they could get the product after that. And we would send them, we said, just send us an email in the off season, we'll send you some product. And that's how we did business. They would send us an email, we'd send them some product, they'd send us a check. And that's how, and so we said, wow, and believe it or not, no one ever took advantage of that, so people are good if you expect them to be kind of good, so no one didn't pay us. And we thought, well, we might have something that people see as valuable, and maybe we have something more than just, this outdoor thing that we're doing. Because of that, we kind of began to look and search, like, how could this happen? And we got connected with a buyer at Lunds and Byerly's who had heard about our product, had been to the Vikings game, enjoyed it, and just said, we want to support local. We had a meeting. Obviously, we were producing this outdoors under a tent or in the back of our garage. And, he said, you guys kind of have some things to do before we can sell it in the store. And so we said, okay, if we do this, will you see us again? And give us a little time and we'll get it accomplished. And at that point, we moved the production, I'll say that in quotes, indoors to the back of Ray's Market here in Mankato, a little tiny grocery store. We rented out their kitchen, which was about 150 square feet. We fashioned an indoor kettle, and we started popping kettle corn. We got it licensed. We got some labels and did everything by hand, and then delivered to the backs of Lunds and Byerly's grocery stores and a couple of food co-ops in 2004. And that's how we started. And in 2005, we outgrew that very small space and bought a building in Lower North Mankato. Outgrew that space in about a year and a half, and then moved into a production facility in North Mankato. And so now, fast forward, 2015, we have about 250 employees. We have 3 production facilities, one in Mankato, one in Ohio, another in Phoenix. We're opening another production facility in Reno, Nevada this fall. We have taken private equity to help us grow throughout the course of our business journey, and I would say we've learned a great deal along the way that we never expected to learn, but part of that learning has to do with being open and also never letting a failure stay a failure. I think as much as you see us as successful, we've probably had that many failures that I like to call fertilizer. It's just what happens, and then instead of like stepping in it, put it in your garden and grow something. So that's how we've managed our failures, and we've done plenty of pivoting, and we continue to do that as well. And it's about shifting quickly and never letting a failure remain a failure. So our story is a Mankato story. We often say that we probably couldn't have done what we did had we not been based in Mankato and had community support and the collaboration between public-private funds and a community of employees that have a tremendous work ethic. And we've hired, our first 3 employees were MSU students part-time that they came to pop kettle corn for us in our first small production facility. One of those individuals went on to be a police officer in town. That was what he was studying in school. Another worked for us for 10 years, ran a division, and we still have one working with us right now. The one that worked with us for 10 years got an offer to go work for SunOpta, and we said, wow, this is fantastic. He put himself in a position. He learned as much as he could in our company, and had the opportunity of a number of offers, and he wanted to move to the cities, and we just felt like as long as we get our people set up for success, it doesn't matter where that success happens. And so we hated to lose Brian, but hey, we were so happy for his success, and we've got we've got a company right now that has a reputation that people want to work with us. So, so we get some churn of employees, but our churn seems to happen with success to the next level. And Dan and I absolutely celebrate that. And it's been a really wonderful thing to see people grow into the business, grow into our company grew in I guess it would have been like year 11 by 96%. And that growth in 2012 was exhausting. And we've slowed down a little bit. We've grown by about 60% this last year, which is still exhausting. But for the time, and every year we've kind of grown at that rate and intensity. We just expected that things would plateau and everybody would catch their breath and everybody would be like, okay, now we can get some of these systems in place that we know we've needed to do for a while, but we just continue to grow. And so we are just now, when we can back down our growth by 30%, we can get a little stability and do some system organizational things that for us, we've been needing to do but don't have time or energy. And I would say for us, we could say maybe, and since we've kind of on this theme of maybe failure pivot, for us we could identify that as maybe, not, and entrepreneurs maybe do this too, kind of beat themselves up for not having everything just right and in place. But I'm going to tell you, nothing is ever just right and in place. You just have to move when things move, and you just have to go. And in retrospect, sometimes you can say, well, we might have done something differently, or, hey, that was really successful. But in the moment, things are so intense, and when growth happens so quickly, you just have to go with it. And sometimes it does feel kind of like a wave coming over everybody, but believe me, when people are challenged to do things that seem extraordinary, they become extraordinary. And that's also sort of the entrepreneurial journey. You end up doing things that you don't think you could ever do or imagine, including living on 4 hours of sleep for about 8 years. So that's the other thing. There are extraordinary things that can happen, and we've been a witness to that, and we've been a participant in that. And I think that's part of the entrepreneurial journey, is really that imaginative, extraordinary human potential that you get to see play out every day.
Wow. Wonderful. Thank you. Is this one working?
Yeah.
I'm actually going to share a little bit of my entrepreneurial journey as well. I am a student here at MSU. I'm a much older student than most other people are, but I am a first-year MBA student here. But I have a past and future in entrepreneurship. Several years ago, I started a clothing line called Naturally Bamboo, which is an organic bamboo, organic cotton, kind of a lifestyle brand that I marketed to the outdoor industry. And I did that for about 5 years. I got into it right when the organic clothing market was growing 20% each year, and then the 2008 recession hit, and people no longer wanted to spend an extra 20 to 25% on purchasing organic apparel. And there was some FTC import regulations on bamboo fiber and just things kind of beyond my control. So that kind of got shelved for a while. And several years ago, my husband and I and 2 other families started up Bent River Outfitter in town. We're going into our 5th summer season. We do outdoor tours, guided trips, rentals, outdoor gear, everything from kayaks to canoes, stand-up paddleboards, and snowshoeing. We partner with area wineries and breweries to do winery and brewery snow package tours in the wintertime, so that is going great. I used to manage that for a couple of years, and then I got kind of tired of working 70 hours a week. doing that, no weekends off, type of thing. So now we have some management and some marketing interns from MSU actually coming in to help us run the outfitter this summer. After I graduate next year with an MBA program, my undergrad is from here in psychology from MSU a long time ago, and then I have a master's in counseling as well, and decided maybe actually go back to school and take some business classes to help me become a better entrepreneur in the future, and I have a couple of ideas moving forward. So that's just a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey. And I know I said I wasn't going to, script questions, but there's things that popped into my head. Angie, I know that you co-founded your business with your husband, and I don't know if Matt and Deepinder, if you have co-founders, but even a project I'm looking at right now, I know I need a co-founder. Can you tell me a little bit about, do you have a co-founder? Do you have a partner? If you do, how did you know that they would be the right person to go into business with you?
Definitely, you have to have a co-founder. I mean, there is no getting around that piece,
Yeah.
I believe. Things are going to get tough, and you need someone else with you to pull you out through it. So the entrepreneur's journey as a solo person is I think, is too hard. And so I always advise people that you need a co-founder. We did have one. I found someone from my university experience. He was my dorm mate. I've known him now for 25 years. So it makes it a little bit easier getting it. And we shout at each other. And it's scary to some people that the CEO and the CTO kind of shout at each other and everyone shuts down. But that's the way it goes. And it wouldn't have been possible without that. I mean, you need an entire support network, right? The co-founder is one piece of it. You need a supporting family. You need so many things need to occur and be in place before things happen. Just like with Angie mentioned, I mean, there has to be something which clicks. And the point of an entrepreneur is to keep on trying until something clicks. I mean, a lot of people are out there to help you. And my biggest lesson has been, I've always been very proud as an engineer to do things on my own, being very competent, but there is no shame in asking for mentorship and support, right? And that's been the learning experience for the last year and a half, and things have become a whole lot easier once I actually got my humility in check and decided that it's okay to ask for help.
I have founders on the Knocker. I have 2 co-founders with the Knocker Squad, 1 co-founder with the Escape and the Paintball. I am the sole owner at this point. I had a partner at the beginning for about 6 months, but it didn't last too long. I would just recycle what you've pretty much said. It's super important. You can't do everything, especially if you're going to really try to grow and actually, be something.
Where did you find your co-founders?
Ultimately they were, when I'm the Escape thing was very much a deliberate, I need to have a co-founder on this. You kind of got to look and pretend you know what the heck you're doing and say, all right, this is a tech business, so we need to have someone who knows technology, and then we need to have a business person. And you kind of got to look into your crystal ball and understand what do you think are going to be the major things that are going to be important or critical to the success of this, endeavor, and then figure out where you fit in there, which box do you fill, and then try to fill the other 1 or 2 or 3 with the right people. And for me, a lot of those have just been through my network. People I've known or been introduced to, and ultimately they were friends to some degree. So just kind of that's I guess where I found my co-founders, was just in my network. And you got to have that conversation up front about this is what I'm trying to do. I think you'd be a good fit, and try to get on the same page with a vision and goals and whatnot. But
Well, I'd love to speak to this one because Dan and I started this together. as co-founders and partners in the business, and we've said to each other many times, we don't know how people do it by themselves. We've seen a couple of people do it by themselves, but don't know how they do it. And I would say, the first thing is that you have to trust your co-founder. You're in business, you're working with money, you're working in relationship, you're working in, you have to also be able to communicate really well with each other and handle conflict, because there will be conflict about what decision needs to be made, or what direction, or what strategy. And I would say, if you're looking for a co-founder, don't look for somebody that's got the exact same skill set as you do, that you feel comfortable with. You need someone that challenges you. Well, Dan and I just happen to be those kind of people with each other. The other part of this is I hadn't done business before other than in a healthcare organization. And our team had 2 bosses, right? And everybody says, oh, that's a disaster to have 2 bosses. Well, the only way I could think about this is everybody, in our family, our kids have 2 parents, and it's not a disaster to have 2 parents. You just have to have a unified voice and do your conflict resolution behind the scenes and come out in a unified way. So for us in business, in the beginning, that was no different. We kind of had our own territory that we sort of managed in the beginning. But just like when a baby is an infant, you're doing everything. Like that baby can't do anything by itself. And if you don't take care of it and feed it and change it and stay up with it, it's not going to survive. Same thing with the business. No matter who you have that you're going to co-found or looking for a co-founder, you got to both be in it together. One person can't be committed and the other one not giving that same amount. So you both have to have that trust and commitment in the beginning to do everything, including clean the bathrooms, or or get on the floor and scrub when somebody's, when you're getting an audit from a manufacturing audit, third-party company or something like that. It's all hands on deck, and you got to have hands on deck. And if you're doing it and your co-founder isn't, it sets you up. So you've got to have people equally committed. The part about as the business grows, just as in my metaphor in parenthood and developmentally, as a business grows, that business needs less of you and more of other competent people. Like, for instance, just in my growing children, when they go off to kindergarten, I don't want to be their kindergarten teacher. I need somebody else that knows how to teach kindergarten. So as the business grows, I need, that parallel of a kindergarten teacher to drive the business and whatever they do to take this baby of ours, and that's how I've thought about it, this baby of ours to the next level. And it's just a series of developmental changes and growth that happens in the business. As that happens, you become sort of engaged, and for us, another marriage sort of happened with private equity. And so you marry yet another business, and that's really the only way that I could think about it as well. It's like there has to be absolute trust in that as you build to that relationship with another business, and they want to know you. It's all on the table. It's kind of the same thing with accountants, I would say. You can't pay an attorney and an accountant enough money. I'm just saying that right. They are your keys to making sure your business is in good shape. And it always kind of feels like you're sitting in front of them just with your underwear on. That's what it feels like in your business, but that's what it has to feel like. You have to be fully transparent with the people that you pay to do their job. And so as you bring on private equity, which is sort of not a co-founder but a partner now in your business, you have to make sure that the cultures fit. They're aligned. The people that are in that business kind of are in step with you and kind of the core and the soul of your business. So it never sort of ends, this whole finding the right partner, whether it starts as a co-founder or as the people that you bring in to your business, or in sort of the marriage of private equity or funding that comes in, or angel investors as well. I've heard of entrepreneurs that take in angel investors and they're just not in alignment, and it creates a lot of disparaging energy that distract from the driving the business and fostering the business to move forward. So, I mean, it's a never-ending question that you ask yourself: is this the right person? Is this the right relationship? Can we work together? And how do we make that work? It's about managing the relationships.
And you haven't fired your husband yet.
Oh, we've fired each other plenty of times. I mean, it's hard, right? Marriage is hard in itself, right? I mean, for all of you that
I'm
are
in a business too with my husband. And
right,
we
it's
just
not.
make sure we're
You
on
just
opposite
have to be
sides of the
able
room.
to manage conflict, right? No, in business, you manage, and you figure out how best you have the healthiest, most productive, best way to move forward, and everybody's in a good place, right? Everybody's happy. I mean, that's so. Not every day, not every moment, but that's what the strive is. It's choosing how to be successful in each moment.
Awesome. So, just in the audience here, by a show of hands, how many of you, if money wasn't an issue, would you start up something? Wow. Look at almost everybody. Money wasn't an issue. So that's one of my things, I've done some research, on youth entrepreneurship, and the two things that stand out that hold young entrepreneurs from starting something is that fear of failure and lack of capital. So, today we're celebrating, our Big Ideas Challenge, which is going, one of our student teams will actually get a cash prize to help, further along their idea. So I'm just going to kind of ask, how you get started, what did you use, for capital? We know, with the Minnesota Cup for you, with my two businesses that I had, because we're a little bit older, known in the community, we had good relationships with our banks. So with our two businesses, we did get initial small bank loans, is how we took out money to fund our ideas. But I'm curious to hear, especially like in the early stages, was it friends, was it family, was it a bank loan, was it, going to a competition? We've all heard, Kickstarter has been something huge. With funding, ideas and things. So, almost everyone in the audience said if money wasn't an issue, they would want to start something. So how do we kind of remove those barriers of that money being an issue?
April, it's interesting. The Minnesota Cup for us actually came 7 years later after we had originally started. So it's not really seed money. I mean, I think it was important for us. It was good for the reputational perspective. It was helpful in raising our seed round from external investors, right? Because we've been trying to do that as well. But it is one of those blocking points, and in my case, it was getting a mortgage. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you max out what you can, and I was in a fortunate enough position that I was consulting before that. If you are on Verizon, there's a 98% chance it goes over a network I did. I had one of the world's first terabit routers. So it was a big decision to actually step down from what was a high-paying job and actually pursue this full-time. But originally, I had asked for 3 years. I think that 3 years kept getting extended again and again, and I keep getting a renewal every 3 years. And now this time I told my wife, I think, honey, I'm actually going to pay myself one of these days. But it's always a drain. But you learn so much, and thankfully she's been supportive enough that continues. But you're right. I mean, it's a big thing. So friends and family are definitely the easiest place to get the first round of money.
Yeah, that's funny because my husband has told me, he's like, no more, April. You're
You're cut
no
off.
more second mortgages on the house, nothing. You're go get a real job. So.
Yeah.
Show of hands, whose idea thinks you need more than $10,000 to get started? Just two? That's it? Everyone else needs less than $10,000 to get started? You guys have no excuse, I believe. I've been in your shoes with everything. All of my businesses, with my own, I had less than $10,000 startup of my own money in every single thing that I've done. And the paintball one, that was my first one. I was in high school. That was literally my co-founder, my partner. We both threw in a couple $1,000 and got started. And all my stuff's very low overhead, low cost to get started. And that's why I've done so many of them. But the paintball one was pretty easy. It was get start, a little bit of cash from both of us, and just we had to turn it over every week. We had to sell everything every single weekend, which wasn't that easy, turns out. So that's kind of how I started that one. The Challenge for Children's, that started with sponsorships and fundraising and stuff from a nonprofit aspect. The Escape thing, that was me and my co-founder starting that. We both threw in our money. And then the Knocker Squad, there's 3 of us. We each threw in our money and have been working and trying to make sure it's a good fit. But I really believe, you guys, entrepreneurship is so hot right now. This is trendy and sexy, and everyone wants to help you. Like, you don't understand it. Like, so many people want to help you do something. The Kickstarter stuff, there's over probably 15 of those websites that you can crowdfund from, and some of them you don't even have to hit your goal, and you still get your money. Make a video, you guys. Otherwise, I really look at, with a lot of the things that we've done, and I have no idea what industries you guys are looking to potentially get into, what your business would be, but if it's like B2C and it's something you could potentially sell, truthfully, I use Groupon and Living Social like a Kickstarter. The amount of money we use to start Knocker Squad is ridiculous. It's nothing, and we don't think we'll have to put another nickel back into it because we did our Groupon, we did our Living Social, we sold the thing. We'd sold out 3 months worth of inventory before we even opened, before the snow stopped melting, and we used all that money to buy the balls and all the crap that we needed, our $10,000 and stuff that we needed to get off the ground. And now we're able to take that money and flip it over and actually do real marketing, because I really don't like Living Social and Groupon. I don't like it, but it's a necessary evil for our startup model without being very cash intensive. So that's kind of how I have funded different
Smart.
adventures.
Very smart, yeah. Well, our first purchase of equipment was with 0% credit cards, which was about $10,000. And that's, and we didn't actually pay ourselves. We didn't pay Dan. He worked full-time in the business until 2008. That was his first paycheck, which was about $500. We lived off of my income, which I was a nurse practitioner and worked at the county clinics for, during the daytime. And our family lived off of that income. So we started with credit cards. We chipped away and paid that off over time. But we also had financing through North Mankato Port Authority to help us purchase, bricks and mortar, our first building. When we outgrew that, we were able to secure a line of credit that helped us with some of our inventory issues. But then when we needed to grow and build out our plant, we needed a lot more money than what we were able to get at that time. And we had probably, maybe 6, 7 banks turn us down, say no. And finally, more than that, actually. Finally, we called, I remember it, just vivid, etched in my mind. It was probably 8 o'clock at night, we called our babysitters, our children's babysitter's father, who happened to work at a bank, and just say, Jerry, is there any possibility your bank would consider, working with us? We need to build out, we need a loan. And so he said, okay, come in, and they listened. He brought people in, brought the president in. It was a local community bank here. And it was, was a character loan that got, or a character sort of introduction, I would say, that got us in the door. And then, they weren't willing to really put all of their money in, but was able to put a small business loan, Voyager Bank at the time, Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, and also Region 9 provided some gap funding. And then we also got a line of credit. But what we had to do to get that accomplished was to put everything that we owned on the line, like personal guarantees, everything except, and I've said this before, and everything except our minivan. So I thought, if we lose everything, if this thing fails, we'll have the minivan. We can live in that. Yeah, we can live in that if we need to, or with the in-laws until, we'll be fine, we'll be okay. We have our professions, we have our education, we'll be fine. So that was our first really huge sort of reality, like, okay, this is the biggest, I remember signing that. This is the most money I'd ever borrowed in my entire life. And the thing is, as your business grows, you get more comfortable with borrowing more money, right? Because you just have to, right? I mean, so we've had conventional financing, and then we grew. It allowed us to grow. We became a profitable company that attracted private equity financing. Twice. So, so we've had unconventional financing as well. But each step of the way, it takes, there's a process of a lot of fretting on our side and a due diligence that even when you have a private equity, let's say, interested in your business, interested in your brand, want to continue to grow it, it's not a done deal until the money's wired, like to the very last second of the phone call. You don't know for sure, and the lawyers are still back and forth, still chipping away at the last sort of thing on the contract before it's done. And so when it's, there, financing, I would say, is the biggest challenge in any business. And there is many methods. Kickstarter didn't exist when we started. It just didn't exist. And it's amazing that there are and you're right, entrepreneurship is hot. There are so many people that want to get into it, even private investors, that mentors, that have been successful, that want to get back in and want to help other people grow. That money is out there that wasn't out there 14 years ago.
All right, it's time to open this up for audience questions. So please raise your hand and I'll come around with the mic. Burning questions. All right. You're good. Wes, yeah, you got a loud enough voice, right?
So this question is specifically for you, Bender. When it comes to the Minnesota Cup, I know you said earlier that you had 7 years under your belt before you did the Minnesota Cup. Is that right? What level was your business at as far as, did you have some sales? Did you have a business plan that was solid, or did you done a lot of business up to that point? What stage was your business at when you did the Minnesota Cup? Was that your first time? How was the experience? Why do you think you won outside of having a great product? Just talk a little bit more about that.
Excellent question. So it was 7 years, but it had been 2 years since we did the pivot. So we started refresh. So there was a complete change in the founding team itself. My previous partner from the residential team, he had family commitments, so he went his way and took on his family business. So I became the CEO. I am what I call a reluctant CEO, right? I'm the tech guy. I used to be the CTO. I do the engineering piece. There's a lot of code that I've written. And then when we did the pivot, he'd gone away. So He used to be in the Bay Area, which was probably a hot area to be for an entrepreneur, but I became the CEO. So for me, it was all fresh. So it was 2 years in terms of where the new company 75F itself was. We had already launched the product, and you're right, I mean, I thought I had a grasp in terms of where I wanted the business to be since I'd helped with the previous business planning and stuff. But the Minnesota Cup really honed it in, right? I mean, and you don't have to do it all by yourself. That's the great part of the Minnesota Cup or any of these competitions, that you have access to such a high quality breed of mentors who can work with you. And I think that entire process really polished and made that business real. Before that, it was all the back of this envelope spreadsheets kind of things. But I mean, it was a huge hassle in my mind to actually go through the process and write the business plan, but I'm glad I did it. It's one of those things, right? I mean, it's the process itself that hones you. It's like going and talking to customers. You have to do it. I hate sales. But I mean, now I consider myself, yeah, I can do sales. I don't want to do engineering anymore. So I've become the turncoat. But I mean, you evolve. But the Minnesota Cup, the reason I think we won was I understood the aspects of the business very well. So we'd done enough due diligence in terms of talking to customers, knowing what they wanted, gone through the entire process of vetting ourselves to figure out what the implications were to the business plan, right? And finally, I think we had a hell of a presentation. And this is something that I'll give out free advice I mean, you have to know your business if you're going into the Minnesota Cup. I mean, you should know it anyway, but the Minnesota Cup really brought it home. I mean, I was very good with the presentation. We had 101 slides in our presentation, went through 36 of them within that 10-minute, including a live demo, within that 10-minute. And then I actually had an index of all the other slides in the addendum, right? So we had planned for every other contingency. And that was, I think, one of the key things when people would ask a question. What people are looking for is, have you thought through things? And whenever one of the judges would ask me a question, I mean, I already had a slide prepared for it. I would look at the index, pull up the slide. And you can do that in PowerPoint. You can press like 42. It'll bring up slide number 42. Now, where I am, I actually have the slides memorized. So I don't even have to have an index anymore. I go to Google Demo a day. I just say what slide number I want. But I mean, that's the virtue of having presented enough times, of having living and breathing it really, right? Because that's when you become from a wannabe entrepreneur to an entrepreneur and really knowing your business. And Melissa's here, by the way. So if you, yes, from the Minnesota Cup, I mean, she's great.
And we're looking at potentially for our Student Big Ideas Challenge, hopefully having a partnership with Minnesota Cup down the road, with having a student winner from our Big Ideas Challenge here at MSU to be an automatic semifinalist in the Minnesota Cup. So that is a partnership that we're exploring here with our students at MSU with the Minnesota Cup as well. So.
That's great.
Okay. Christy, a question?
Well, my questions are easy. First of all, thank you all for giving up your bluntness about your stories. It's really interesting. Angie, you mentioned one, that you were a nurse, so the business background that I'm hearing from you doesn't sound like much that you learned in nursing school. But you mentioned your attorneys and your accountants and the value that they bring to your team. But what else do you have for advisors or management team that's helped you through this process?
Yeah, well, there's learning everywhere, you know? I mean, it's true. I mean, I did run budgets in healthcare. I'd been a nurse for 28 years. So there are times when I ran administrative systems within a healthcare system. So I kind of understood that. And, you know, and initially, you know, scheduling a 24/7 factory or production facility isn't that much different than scheduling or understanding the concept of how hospitals run. So we had there are some things from both Dan's sort of history of coaching and teaching that come natural in the business. You know, he's a great coach and teacher out there in the field, you know, as well as in our production facility and with our team. As we've grown and become a little bit more sophisticated, there are, you know, our access to folks have become just expansive. You know, with some of the, when we brought private equity in, we didn't so much need their money. We needed their resources. The money was great, believe me. We needed that. That was great to help us grow. But what we needed was and the way that we chose which one we wanted to work with was their portfolio. The first group that we worked with was the same group that grew Izzy. They grew Oregon Chai, they grew Chow Bella, they grew Food Should Taste Good, and our brand, Angie's Boom Sugar Pop. So, they had experience and a sales team and a vast experience in running sort of natural and organic foods. And so from their network, we could bring people in. Until that point, we would find people at our daughter's Girl Scout troop, that had some experience working here or there, and we'd say, hey, do you want to consult, help us, and they would connect us with someone else that was an engineer, and then they'd connect, and so we started to get this web of, sort of extraneous people that on the side, that had full-time jobs, but on the side were willing to help us, and, we'd pay them, a consulting fee, and they were sort of starting their own little consulting business. So that's kind of how we pieced it together in the beginning. And very helpful, not always right, but helpful. And, and then as the business grows, we've been able to get access to a lot of people that we've been able to hire. I think, and this has been so long ago now, I can't even remember what it was called exactly. This community had through the business, maybe Mike Nolan, maybe you remember what it was called, that they had mentors that we could connect with. Yeah, I don't really remember, but we would get, it was free. It was free to us for an hour. We'd get an hour once or twice a month that somebody would come and meet with us and help us kind of think through branding or think through business development. And, so, we took advantage of that early on. I took advantage of, the state had a free book that I'm sure they don't send anymore. They just send it to you online, of how to start a food business, and I read through that and highlight, and there's, stuff like that, we'd use that. Now we've built a network that's just extraordinary, and if people need a network, this is the thing, I'm a judge for the food division at the Minnesota Cup, and it's a lot of fun for me because there's probably 3 companies that are food companies that have come up through the Minnesota Cup. Not all food, but maybe student that I'm on the phone with, their founder or their young entrepreneur that has a question, and I get a chance to help, and once you've had some, once you've been through it, you want to help somebody else not make the same mistake you made. So, we welcome that. Now we're in the other side of that curtain, where we can say, hey, let me pull this back and introduce you to these folks, and maybe that will help you. So, we've been able to use what we've learned as a springboard for other young entrepreneurs, and it's enjoyable. And there are plenty of business folks out there that enjoy doing that and are available to people and startups.
Well, I have a food product idea, so I'm going to come find you and use you as a resource. Any other questions that we have? Kurt?
Question for Angie. I assume you had interest from many different types of advisors, players, and others in your history. I also assume you had to date before you got married. How did you go about choosing the ones that would be most effective for your business?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a courtship, and then you sign the engagement contract, and then it's a true engagement, the due diligence period. And to get to that point, you get courted by, if you've got a great brand and a profitable business, a lot of suitors come to call. They're interested because they see the opportunity and the potential. And so for us, it was about the people, the people and the portfolio. Like, we had a lot of people, a lot of private equity come to us that had never done food before. So natural and organic, really hot right now. Food entrepreneurs, and so private equity has a lot of money right now because interest rates are really low, and they can't really make a lot of money with some of the traditional ways. So they're looking for hot growth companies, and natural and organic foods are one of those. And so we had, let's say, private equity coming to us that had never had that experience, but they wanted to get into it. And those we just scratched off, no, we don't necessarily just need your money. We need your network. We need your expertise. We need you to take us to the next plateau. And if this is your first rodeo, no, not a good fit for us. So, and then we had a couple that, were close to that, and some strategics that were interested in the product, which for us at this point in time, we weren't ready. Because when strategics, larger consumer packaged goods take a look at you, they're generally going to sort of probably eliminate most of your staff because they have everything in place. And we weren't quite ready to do that. So we sort of crossed that off, in terms of, present day, and we felt like we had a fairly significant runway ahead of us that we could grow it much larger because we didn't think a strategic might be quite ready for us at the point we were at yet. So it came down to a couple of private equities in this last round, and I would say we chose because of the feel, the instinct, more than anything else. And that, we liked them, we liked their business model, we liked their reputation in the marketplace, and we read everything we could about them, both of these companies. It was down to 2, and we made a decision to go with TPG instead of this other company. And I tell you, when we made that decision, it was like The Bachelorette. Kind of, okay, we're giving you the rose, and so this one over here, we got a call, she's flying in tonight. She wants to meet you to convince you otherwise, but we just felt like, and so that pull kind of comes oh my gosh, they really want us, and you get all of that, but we just knew instinctually that this was the right way to go because they had some operational expertise that this other company didn't have, and for us that was what we needed, and so there's sort of many things on our list that kind of eliminated parties for us, and then when it came right down to it, it was really sort of gut, and maybe that's not always the right way, but that's how it's worked for us. My answers are so long. I'm so sorry.
Oh, she's so good at them, though. Well, thank you very much. Let's give our entrepreneurs a round of applause. And I'm sure if you have more questions, they will stick around and answer ones that you have. Now, if you'd like to join us down in the Hearth Lounge area, that's down kind of by the fireplace, we're going to do our Big Ideas break. Featuring some local food entrepreneurs. So we have BW3, Jersey Mike's, Tandem Bagels, and of course Angie's Kettle Corn will be featured for you all to sample during our Big Ideas break down in the Hearth Lounge. And then we'll be holding our Student Innovation Fair there this afternoon as well. And then we'll be back here in Ostrander at 4 o'clock for our 5 Big Ideas student finalist presentations. Where judges will choose the $8,000 winner, and then the audience will choose the $2,000 winner, and then we'll do a celebration reception back down in the Hearth Lounge, probably around 6:15. So thank you, and have a good rest of your afternoon.